Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Kanpai.
Cheers.
Hey, you know, the more I drink this, I like this. It's got that nice. You're right. It does have kind of like almost a whiskey aftertaste.
It does,
to it.
right? Yeah. It's still very clearly sake when you drink it, but it's just got like this ever so slight bite to it that just reminds me of whiskey.
Yeah, I gotta say though, I gotta do a shout out. So Echigo Zakura is from Niigata. So of course, all the good sake is from Niigata. Even though I don't like it very much.
I really like it. Actually, anything that's south of Niigata is just inferior sake.
Dude, shut up. I'm not that much of a sake. How do you say it? Like sake snob?
Yeah. Keep saying that.
Shut up, man. Okay. Whatever, man. It's okay. So you know what? I am just gonna dive into today's topic. Do you know what today's topic is?
Today's topic is about me gaining weight.
No way.
That's what today's topic is.
No, we could talk about that, but today's topic is about university life.
Yes, university life. It's very true.
Yeah.
And the difference between it in America.
Yeah.
Right.
So because you and I, we had very different experiences in university
very
in
different.
the States, and I also came to school in Japan for a year too.
Yeah.
So tell me about your background. You said you went to Bellevue College.
So when I graduated high school, I went to Bellevue Community College. It's not a community college anymore. And I just wasn't feeling college very much when I graduated, and I think I actually think that's a huge problem for kids these days. I think 18 is way too young to go into college.
Yeah.
I don't think that you should be prevented, but I think that it shouldn't be like the default option.
Yeah.
Right? I think people should experience life and in the workforce.
Yeah.
For at least a year or two, and then enter college.
Yeah, you need to know like what the real world is like.
Yeah. And there's so many people that I talk to these days that just have no idea what they're doing in college.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why are you going to college? Well, I don't know. It's just kind of expected of me, you know? And it's like, that's such a wrong attitude, because college is a great opportunity to learn stuff, but you have to, you get what you put into it.
When did you start college?
So when did I enter Bellevue or
Bellevue,
UW?
Bellevue.
Let's see. I graduated in 2008.
2008. Okay.
And I entered the Marines winter that year, or like spring that year. So let's see, or spring 2009. So probably like, I think I entered like summer.
Oh, summer. So you went to school in summer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you had like a gap because you didn't do an ROTC kind of thing.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
No, when I joined the Marines, it was like my dad was furious. So, it was like I dropped out of community college, and then there was like, it was like February of 2008, or sorry, February 2009, and I was just kind of lost in my life, and I didn't want to go to college because I just didn't feel like a pull to that at the time. And then my friend messaged me, and he's like, "Hey, dude, so do you want to hang out?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" Well, I hang out with them all the time. It wasn't exactly worded that way, but he's like, "Well, I'm joining the Marines here in a couple weeks, so I just want to spend a lot of time with my family and friends before I go." And I'm like, "Oh shit, this guy's joining the Marines. What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I'm doing infantry." It's like, well, fucking take me down to the recruiter office.
Oh, really?
I'll check it out. And my dad was on vacation watching the Mariners train in Arizona at the time. And so I went down to the recruiter's office, like signed papers immediately that day.
Wow.
And I think it was the day after my dad came back from vacation, I was leaving for boot camp.
What?
Like, oh my God,
dude,
he was so furious.
That's I would be kind of angry too if my son did that to me.
Yeah, I didn't talk to him at all about this.
Yeah.
I told my mom after I signed the papers. I was like, "Mom, I'm joining the Marines." So
how did she take that?
My mom has always been very supportive of me. She wasn't happy about it, but she's done a good job throughout my entire life of just always supporting. Like even if I make dumb decisions, which looking back, I don't think the Marines was a dumb decision, but it was a really intense decision.
Yeah,
and so she was like, "Okay, I guess this is what you're doing." So.
Okay. And so then you went to the Marines. So you went to Bellevue College, community college. You went to the Marines, and then
Yeah.
you went to UW afterwards.
Yeah, so I went to the Bothell campus.
Yeah. So first, let's talk a little bit for our Japanese listeners. They
Yes.
probably don't know what a community college is versus like what a 4-year college is.
So I feel like community colleges have a really bad stigma, which I think is kind of unfair. But they kind of have a stigma as they're not as good as universities are.
But what are they?
So they're colleges, but they don't offer bachelor's degrees, and they're typically cheaper. So they're designed to be more accessible to people who are like lower income or maybe just don't have the time to commit themselves to getting admitted into an actual university. So yeah, it's just kind of like a more accessible college.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of, so like you said before, you can't get a bachelor's degree, like a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
You get a 2-year degree, associate's degree. So I think it's actually similar in Japan to, they call it like Tandai, Tanki Daigaku, which is a 2-year thing, which a lot of women go to. Like actually Natsumi's parents recommended that she just go to Aotan, to the Aoyama Gakuin Tandai.
Yeah.
And she actually transferred to the regular school, which was good on her.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think when I went to Seattle, an interesting thing is that I found a lot of people had started at a community college and then they transferred to UW.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did too.
Whereas like in Boston, where I lived in the North Shore of Boston, we had North Shore Community College. And if you went to North Shore Community College, you were like a wash up. It's because you couldn't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And no one would ever choose to go there.
Yeah.
So it had a huge stigma to it, and I was surprised that the view was very different in Seattle.
Very much so. It really bums me out because I think, so first of all, the thing about community college, it is very non-committal.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to get kicked out of college if you just don't take classes for a couple quarters. Whereas if you're attending a university, I think you're allowed to skip like 1 quarter before they start sending you warnings like, hey, you're going to get kicked out of college if you don't take classes. Community college isn't like that. You can I think you can just drop for an entire year and then come pick right up again. So it, like I said, it's very non-committal. So to be fair, the stigma does come from people who just show up, take a couple classes, and then disappear. But in my opinion, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think those people are coming and trying out college and thinking to themselves, you know what? I'm not interested in this, or I'm not at a point in my life where this is really something that I want to pursue. And I think that's fine. College is all about trying new things, and this is a college for trying new things, right? But yeah, so I started, so when I got out of the Marines, I entered college in, 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. And I went to Cascadia Community College, which is it's the UW University of Washington has 3 campuses. There's the Seattle campus, the Bothell campus, and the Tacoma campus. Seattle's obviously the biggest campus. This is the main one. But the Bothell campus has a community college that's attached to it, and they've got like this relationship where if you fulfill the requirements at the community college, you'll get into the UW. No problem.
Okay.
Because the Cascadia Community College is really high-ranking community college.
Oh, so the Cascadia Community College is part of the UW Bothell
campus.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically the same school. If you really boil things down to it, like if you go on at the campus, there's almost no distinction whatsoever other than like a couple signs. Like the buildings even look the same.
Okay.
But I spent like a year and a half there, and I transferred over to the UW.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because actually at Aogaku, it's kind of similar where if you go to the high school, it's a lot easier for you to go to the college. And if you go to the Tandai, it's very easy for you to get into the 4-year. It's
funny you mentioned that school because I have a buddy who's an English teacher at the junior high there.
Yeah.
And so the mentality at those schools is so much different than like, my school, for example.
Oh, how's it different?
So there's a lot less stress in the classes, right? Especially like in like Kosan in the the 3rd year high school. All of my students right now are like, just going crazy doing college applications. Especially like fall in Japan for 3rd grade high schoolers is like a really stressful time for them because they got to take entrance exams. And if there's one thing that people know Like, this is like one of the very first things you learn about Japan. It's that entrance exams are hell.
Yes.
Just pure hell. Like, whoever designed them just hates children. That's the only way I can explain it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get it. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But my friend who works there was explaining, it's like, well, okay, all these kids have to do is graduate high school and they get accepted into the college, so it's a lot more relaxed. Of course, they still have to take an entrance exam, but it's kind of it's not as serious as trying to get into another school.
Yeah, that's something that's interesting to talk about, is like the difference between entry exams for university in the States versus in Japan.
Yeah.
So like, cause I've never worked at a high school, so I don't actually know what those entry exams are like.
Yeah.
But, what are they like?
So, I mean, it's the best way I would put it is I guess I would kind of equate it to the SATs.
Yeah.
I think they're very similar in comparison.
Yeah. So like the SATs are like basically the same thing as an entrance exam in the United States, but I think they're a little bit different.
They are. But it's like the same concept, right? It's a generalized test that's designed to show not only your aptitude but your ability to perform in situations where so for example, the SAT, it is specifically designed to make sure that you can't finish the test. That's it is basically impossible to complete the SAT. And the testers or the test scorers know this, right? I guess they are testers, but the testers know this, right? And so it's all about you being able to efficiently use your time and show aptitude in a certain skill. So for example, like science, it'll give you like this huge essay part in the beginning with a reading part and then some multiple choice and short answer. And the idea is, like, for example, you fill out the essay and then you skim through the reading instead of reading each sentence, right? And then you use the knowledge that you got from skimming to answer like the short answer and multiple choice. If you did it in the traditional sense, then you would never be able to complete. So it's kind of that idea. I think the standardized tests that Japan does, they're not designed in that sort of philosophy. They're designed. It's memorization.
Okay.
I would say that's the big difference between an entrance exam in Japan versus the SATs.
Yeah.
It's all about memorization here.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing for me when I went to school in Aogaku for a year.
Yeah.
Just realizing that, like, in the States, what you do is you take your knowledge and you apply it to a new, unfamiliar situation.
Yeah.
But when you study in school, it's about memorization. So I remember just to go off a little bit of a tangent, but I remember when I came to Aogaku and I was taking a nonverbal communication class.
Yeah.
And I learned all about the Duchenne smile, about how to make a smile look real, how the pupils dilate to show interest, and like all these kinds of things. So like you can kind of see what people are thinking or communicating without using words.
What was it?
No. I'll show it to you later. You have to crinkle your eyes a bit to make it look more real. But it's called a Duchenne smile, though. But yeah, so I was when it came time for the Kimatsu Shiken, when it came time for the finals, I was ready, and I was like, I'm going to study this. I'm going to master this material. I can't wait to apply my knowledge to like whatever's going to come. And I was really trying to understand the basic concepts, so that, you know, when an unfamiliar situation came up on the test, I could apply what I learned.
Yeah.
And half the test was the names of the face muscles.
Oh, of course. Of course. It's always the most mundane stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I didn't memorize any of this because it doesn't matter. But you guys, half the test is the names of the muscles. What's this muscle? I don't know. What's this muscle? The masticator? What's this muscle? That's how my test went.
Wow. That's funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, whoops. God, I'm trying to clean up and I just made a bigger mess.
We should get tissues next time.
Yeah.
Just clean up.
But, so I think that's a huge part. And, I would say, so first of all, I've never been to college in Japan, so maybe you can fill me in on this. But what is like community life like in Japanese college?
So one of like the biggest differences between college life in the States versus college life in Japan is that in the States, especially freshmen and sophomores, they live in the dorms or they live nearby. They don't live with their parents. But unless your family lives really far away from the college, pretty much everyone lives with their parents.
Yeah.
And that was just a really weird concept because in the States, it's almost like college is like the mid step between child life and adult life where they're kind of weaning you off of reliance on your parents. You're still getting money and support from your parents, but you don't have their presence there.
Yeah.
And so that was really great for me when I was in UW because I had to learn independence because my parents were thousands of miles away and I was in the dorms with all these kids my age, but you don't really have that. So I think people will like one thing that's really big here is, you don't really go to school or you don't really go to classes, or if you go to classes, you can sleep in the classes. It's okay. As long as one thing that was really interesting for me was like a lot of basic like 101 entry level classes. You don't really have to do anything. You just have to show up. And so what'll happen is about 5 minutes into the class, you'll pass in your attendance sheet. Like they pass out a small little square paper that has a place to fill in your student number, your name and stuff, and the date, so that you can show that you have attended the class that day. And so a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll sit in their seat, they'll get the paper, they'll fill it in, and then they'll give it back, and then they'll just fall asleep. And this teacher doesn't care. It's like I'll see someone just on the desk, just not doing anything. And this happens a lot. So because like the main point is not to necessarily learn, but it's to attend the class. And then a lot of people also, like a big thing about college life in Japan is baito. Actually, so a lot of people, like you have your
so what is baito?
Baito, is like a part-time job. It comes from the arubaito.
Yeah,
it's the German word arbeit, which means work.
I didn't know that's where it came from.
Yeah, the German word arbeit means work.
Interesting.
Yeah, not part-time work, but it just means work. But so they take that, and so like a lot of people, they'll go to their classes, do what they need to do, and then they'll go to their part-time job so they can buy nice clothes and stuff because, everyone here is really fashion conscious.
Yeah, especially when they're like 19.
Yeah, seriously, man. And then I was fashion conscious when I was 19 too.
Me too.
Yeah, and then on top of that, then what they'll do is you'll have like nomikai or gokon where you hang out with people from school and stuff. But there's not really a huge like student activities world. Like at least at University of Washington, Seattle, there was like this huge student center where you could do all these clubs and activities. Yeah. That wasn't based on drinking or going out or something like that. But you don't really have that at schools here. I mean, sometimes you do, but it's much more minor compared to what you have in school, which is kind of funny because like in high school, in American high school, the club activities are not a big thing, but in Japan, they're huge. Then when you go to college, club activities are huge in America, but not so big in Japan. Yeah. So that's kind of like what social life is like, I think.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Like I to be honest though, I wasn't really active in social life because when I came to Japan, I was thinking, this is my 1 year. It's time for me to establish my life here. Yeah. So I'm going to work. I'm going to teach English. I'm going to start my business. So I didn't hang out with anyone from college.
You loser.
Hey, you know what? I made a lot of cool friends outside of college.
Yeah. You've told me some of the stories of like meeting that one guy who just wanted to go drinking in Nakano. And yeah, man.
Yeah, and some CEOs of some pretty big companies now.
Oh, but I don't want to hang out with rich CEOs. I just want to meet a guy who's got a yacht.
Anyways, dude. But yeah, so okay, so I want to go back to a little bit about what you see as kind of like the function of university in Japan. Like, what's the purpose of university?
University?
No, not in Japan, in the United States.
In the United States? Well, I think you kind of mentioned already kind of what the main purpose is. It's kind of like a introduction into adulthood. It's like your first time being on your own and trying to kind of branch out and be more independent. I think for many people it's also their first time interacting with people who are not from their like local community. Yeah. Right. At least I would say more often than not, when people are going to colleges in the U.S., they're not going to their hometown colleges. Yeah, they're going at the very least they're going to like a state college that's like at least in the big city. Yeah, a little bit of a ways from their town, right? I don't know if that's the same in Japan. It doesn't feel that way. Just judging by students at my school, the vast majority of them are picking places that are closer to their home.
Yeah.
Which,
well, I mean, a lot of, but you go to school in Tokyo, so like a lot of.
That's true.
Yeah,
I mean, so it's like, where are they going to go?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So like in the US, for example, it's really common for someone to pick a college that's outside of their state.
Yeah, right.
So
like me.
Yeah, exactly. You're a textbook case.
Yeah.
You know, you came to Seattle to go to the UW. So it's just a really like kind of their first introduction to outside communities. And so it's like going to high school again. It's like trying to find your own identity within a bigger community. And they're like, that's kind of what the first year of high school, the first year of university is like in the US. So for most people, I think, I entered college a little bit later. So I think if you're like under 21, I think you're required to stay in the dorms. But for most people entering colleges, you're required to live on the dorms for the first year.
Yeah, right.
And
so dorms are dormitories, like where all the students live, and it's provided by. Which is funny because a lot of dorms in Japan are not owned by the university. They're owned by dorm companies that have contracts with the universities.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So like my friend went to Temple University.
Yeah.
And he actually lived in a dorm around Musashi Kosugi. And that was like, you'll have like students from different universities on the same floor.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I just stopped at that, but keep on going. So you live in the dormitories?
Yeah. So you live in the dormitories, and do you know what Japanese dormitories are like?
No, I've never been in one.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I don't know what they're like either, but I know what the American ones are like. So, for example, like a typical dorm, like at the UW, right? It'll be a kind of like the equivalent of like a 1R.
Yeah.
Here in Japan.
Yeah,
so like a 1-room apartment where it's like they have like a small hallway and then there's a big room, right? And then in that room, you're typically going to have 2 beds, right? Because you have a roommate. You have a roommate. And they're under very strict rules. Like they're not allowed to cook things in their apartment. So you're not allowed like hot plates or any of that stuff. I didn't stay in the dorms at UW, but if I remember correctly, they had community bathrooms too.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have bathrooms in the in their own rooms.
Yeah, so I lived in one of the older dorms in the Seattle campus called Haggett Hall.
Yeah.
Actually, Arthur Haggett Hall. But yeah, they've actually since torn it down, and so like UW in Seattle has really spent a lot of money really updating the infrastructure. But yeah, the thing about Haggett Hall was that they had hexagonal rooms.
Oh, interesting.
So rooms that were like a hexagon shape, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so no hot plates, no cooking. We could have a microwave and a water kettle, and that was about it.
Yeah.
But every floor had a kitchen with a stove.
Yes. And
yeah, seeing people kind of cooking there was kind of funny. And and you all had like bathrooms that had like a bunch of showers and stuff that was kind of like the equivalent of like a gym shower area.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you have those two. But yeah, there were lots of rules like make sure you're not smoking, you can't drink. And they had like RAs, resident advisors, whatever you call them, who would come around to make sure there was no funny business going on. Yeah.
Those friggin' nerds.
I know, seriously.
Just ruining everyone's fun.
Yeah. And it was funny though, because I lived on the international floor. And so there was lots of, there were actually like no Japanese people there.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. From going to the UW, most of the international students that I would see were either Indian or Chinese.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think like, what was it? Chinese were like 20% of the population.
I think it was more. I think it was like a 30%.
Yeah.
Because I know the UW actually got in trouble. This is probably 10 years ago, but they got in trouble for admitting more international students than local students.
Oh, really? Wow.
And some of the big companies like Microsoft and Amazon got really upset about that. Like, dude, you're supposed to be building up our community because we're supposed to be hiring these people.
Yeah.
Like, it's great that you're bringing international people, but
Yeah.
You need to be bringing local people too.
Yeah, right.
The college makes more money for bringing international.
For sure.
So, of course, they'd be incentivized to accept more.
Yeah, that's something that's interesting too. Is like, so the schools in the States have different tuition based if you're in state, out of state, or international.
Yeah.
So like, just to give you an idea, so when I started going to UW, in-state tuition.
Yeah.
So like if you grew up in Washington, you were paying Washington state taxes.
Yeah.
Tuition was like $10K a year.
Yeah, that sounds right.
8 to $10K a year.
Yeah.
When I started, because I'm out of state.
Yeah.
It was $20K a year.
Really?
Yeah.
So
and international students were $35K a year.
You're kidding me.
Nope.
So you paid $5,000 a quarter, basically?
Yeah, I paid double what. Yeah, I mean, I didn't pay it. My dad paid it.
I didn't pay either.
And then my dad lost. Yeah, and then my dad lost all his money, so I had to stop for a while. But then I became in-state, and then I got in-state tuition.
I didn't know how expensive that was.
Yeah, but it tends to be about double.
Yeah.
Whereas in Japan, you don't really have that. I think.
Really?
Yeah, because in Japan it's like the same tuition for everyone. Because you have prefectures here, but they're not as separate as like the states in the United States. Yeah.
It's a lot more connected.
Yeah. But that's why there were so many Chinese international students.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I want to talk about, which it's something I always have a really hard time expressing to my students, because they ask me what college is like in America all the time. And so I was part of a fraternity. Not
frat boy life.
Yeah, for not the entire time. I actually left in my later years. I think I was only part for about a year. Just because I felt like a fish out of water. I was too old.
Yeah. So this is something that really does not exist in Japan, and I've actually had a hard time explaining this to Natsumi about sorority life and fraternity life. Can you just give like a brief overview of what that is?
So first of all, I'll just give the very basic explanation. So a fraternity is a group of guys that are all part of like a club, basically, in the school. And the club purchases a house that's typically next to or on the campus, right? And they all live together. So I lived in a large house that was, I don't know how many people lived there. Probably like 30, 35 people.
They tend to be really big houses.
Yeah, they're huge houses, and they're really old. Like, I was part of ATO, which is like one of the biggest fraternities in the U.S. And this house was a 3-story house that was like, it had to have been built like 100 years ago and just added on over the years. You know, there was guys that were sleeping in like basically holes in the wall.
Really?
Like the building structure was not super great on the inside. I'm going to be honest, but you know, it's a storied history.
Yeah.
But so basically, you have a bunch of guys living in the same house, and then they have the same thing for girls. It's called a sorority. So a bunch of girls living in the house, and they're set up as ways to force community interaction. Because it's like the idea is like maybe somebody's not really comfortable living on their own, or they want to make friends, or just kind of get out and experience social life, and this is designed to facilitate that. So there's community events like every single week that the entire fraternity does together. So for example, we would have like kayaking trips like on Saturdays and Sundays. We would have hikes, we would have like sports games, we would have like volleyball tournaments, like stuff like that. Barbecues out on Alki Beach.
Oh, nice.
Man, I miss Alki.
Yeah, man.
So like stuff to get you out and interacting with other people. And it was a lot of fun. And the big part of it is drinking.
Yeah.
So
before you get into that, I just kind of want to like bring a little bit of context to this. So originally fraternities were supposed to be like small, like societies of scholars that would live together to study together.
Oh,
to
really?
Like build each other up. It's a fraternity. It's a brotherhood.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And so they were like, okay, we all have the same goal. We want to focus on our studies. Let's live together in this house and let's support each other and let's build a nice community. And so you'll actually have fraternities that have groups all over America in different universities. So you'll have, and they're the names are based off of Greek letters.
Yes.
So like my sister went to the sorority Sigma Kappa, and I forget the other ones, but basically they all have so sororities have 2 Greek letters and fraternities have 3 Greek letters to their names, because scholars like Greek originally and it's supposed to be cool. But so they turn from these like communities of scholars to, hey, we're a bunch of dudes living in a house, let's party and get drunk and let's hang out with the sorority girls.
Yeah.
And so like the image of a frat boy now is like, so if you had to describe a frat boy like visually, what would a frat boy look like?
I can easily describe this. So aviator sunglasses or like colored sunglasses. Some kind of polo, typically with the college like mascot or symbol on it. And shorts, and then a backwards baseball hat.
Backwards baseball cap. So I would say the same thing, except like they would have a tank top on instead of a polo shirt.
Oh, sure.
Like a bro.
I was just thinking of like the pop collar.
Oh yeah, that too.
Polo.
So I never went to a fraternity. I never was a frat boy. I visited frats a couple times, but like whenever I went, it was always like, hey guys, let's work out, let's go meet a lot of girls, and let's drink a lot of beer. Like that's kind of the
that's like
atmosphere.
90% of what you do there. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, so with that image in mind, okay, keep on going.
Yeah. So, well, to be fair, to their credit, there was also study time.
Okay.
There was also study time. So, typically speaking, like the normal days of the week, so you're like early, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday days, were there was no events planned, and it was just kind of like daily life, and you would have study groups. So you would have like, all right, such and such person's really good at math, so that person's available for tutoring to anybody in the house. I helped. So I was an English major, so I helped people with their essays.
Cool.
My buddy graduated with a 3.9 physics major.
Okay.
Very smart guy. Couldn't write at all.
Really?
I wrote all of his essays in college.
Really? Wow.
Looking at you, Drew. Anyways.
I hope he watches this.
No, I don't think he has any idea.
Yeah.
What was I talking about? Oh yeah. So you would have study groups. But then Thursday night was typically the party night.
Okay. Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday nights. And so, oh man, things would get absolutely crazy. So this is kind of like the hidden part of college in the U.S. that, like I said, I've never been to Japanese college, but I don't think this exists anywhere here in Japan. So you have fraternity parties, and so the fraternity will send out invites to everybody on the campus, and is
it really everybody on the campus, or is it mainly like sororities and other?
It's mostly other fraternities and sororities, but if you know somebody in the house, you can get in.
Okay.
So it's not difficult to get in as long as you know somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was actually the doorman for a lot of these parties.
Okay.
So
what's a doorman?
So doorman's like you gotta. The most important thing is you gotta check everyone's ID.
Okay.
Because man, there were so many times when people get in. It's like because a lot of people join colleges when they're young.
Yeah.
Like maybe they skipped a year in high school
18,
or something.
19.
And so yeah, there's a couple times like somebody would get in. They'd be like 16 or 17 years old.
Wow.
And obviously there's alcohol and debauchery going on.
Yeah.
And so you don't want the cops showing up and being like, hey, guess what? This 16-year-old's drunk.
Yeah.
You're giving them alcohol.
Yeah.
Have fun in jail.
Yeah, right.
No, that would suck. So that's a very serious thing. You got to check everyone's ID and, like you get a wristband if you're 21.
Okay.
So like you could only get alcohol if you had a wristband, but
okay.
When everyone's getting drunk.
Like, right.
How enforced is that really? But so it's like there'll be huge parties. I mean, I'm talking like hundreds of people coming into these parties.
Right.
And
because the houses are so big, they can facilitate a lot of people.
Yeah. Like just to give you an example of how many people. So this was a 3-story house, and honestly, the only way I could describe it was a mansion.
Yeah.
That's all these houses are. We're talking probably like 20, 30 bedrooms.
Wow.
Large hall rooms on each floor. And when we had parties, every single room in the house was full.
Yeah, right.
It was just packed with people to the point where it's kind of hard to move around in.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're a really fun experience. But I think they're also a rampant source of problems on the campus.
Yeah. I can tell you as someone who didn't live on the campus, maybe I was too nerdy to actually get in to actually go, because actually to get into a frat, you have to go through a pretty serious ordeal of tests, and they bully you and stuff like that.
It's fun, but
it's fun. Insane. It's fun if you're the one who's doing it, not if you're receiving it. But yeah. So like the only thing that I really knew about frat boys was like they never studied, got drunk all the time, and like all this crazy stuff. Like if there was a problem on campus, it was probably related to the fraternities.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
you're not wrong.
Yeah.
There were constant sources of issues. We had fights break out almost every party.
Yeah, right.
You know, stupid stuff like that. I mean, it's just like you get a bunch of 18-year-olds together, and it's like that's gonna happen.
Yeah, so it's funny because it's like you said, you know, really, university in America is really kind of like the transition between being a child to being an adult.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like I wish I had a little bit more preparation on what the world actually worked like, because still university is very much a very like artificial environment that's not connected to the real world very much.
Completely agree.
But yeah, it's very different from Japan, where like basically university is like 4 years of fun until you get a job.
Yeah, so that's the thing that's kind of funny to me is I've always looked at Japanese university as just being like high school.
Yeah,
it's just high school plus.
It's high school with a part-time job.
Yeah. For me, it's always felt like that transition period from child to adult is like the first 2 to 5 years of a person's like career job once they get out of college here. Because like we'll get new teachers at my school. They'll be like 22 and just graduated college, and they're like still living at home and trying to figure things out and like slowly adjusting into like, you know, normal adult life.
When you say new teachers, do you mean Japanese teachers? Or?
Yeah. And so when I look at them, I see kind of like the same transition period that a lot of people in America do when they're going to college.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's like, so in Japan, right? One thing I also want to talk to you is about like job hunting, and we're like this is good. We're almost done with this.
Already. I'm having fun. This topic.
Yeah,
cool.
this is good. There's a lot to talk about, dude.
Yeah,
college is wonderful.
But
yeah, so like one thing that I think is interesting is that, like you said, you know, university in Japan is like high school plus, where so you go to school for 4 years, and in the third year for high school you do entrance exams to college. Then you go to college, same thing, and then in the third year you wear a suit, you do what everyone else does, you fill out a resume the same way that everyone else does, and you apply for a job, and then when you go to your job, you start your work at the same time as everyone else. You have a commencement ceremony, just like in university, and it just kind of is a continuation of that. Whereas like in the States, it's not like that.
No, not at all.
Like, what for you? So like in the States, what is like job hunting like? I never did job hunting.
You know, to be honest, I didn't either, because I always had a very set path. That I knew what my next step was,
which was
being a teacher in Japan. Hey, I mean, since 14, I had a clear path. And so I've always known what my next step was. However, I had roommates in the past, and you know, I've been around people who've done job hunting, and I've checked people's resumes and stuff like that. Job hunting, I think, is a lot less structured in America than Japan. For sure. In Japan, it's like the vast majority of people are not just throwing themselves out there. They go to a company that kind of sets them up with a job, right? So they'll send their resume to a company, and then the company looks for a job for them. Same with apartment hunting, actually, too. Whereas in the U.S., it's like they have those companies, but I feel like most people, like, they do that kind of thing on their own. It's like, oh, I want to work for Boeing, or I want to work for Microsoft or whatever. Okay, well, let me look up what I have to do to apply for that. Like, they're not going to a company and having that done for them. Yeah, it's so like in Japan, it's funny because everyone wears the same suit, and like the format for a resume in Japan is decided. So everyone fills out the same format of resume. They go to the job fairs. They take interviews. They're side by side with all these other people, and that's how a lot of people get jobs. Whereas in the States, I feel like a lot of my friends got jobs because I've never had a real job in my life ever. But
It's just funny how I'm. It's funny how I'm still alive. Like I've never worked for a company before, but
yeah.
But yeah, I feel like in the States, a key thing to getting a job is actually doing an internship.
Yes.
Before. So
Yeah.
you'll have like internship fairs,
Yeah.
but it's still very free flow. Like
Yeah.
when you're a junior in university,
Yeah.
that's when it's like, okay, now is around the time I should do an internship,
Yeah.
which is kind of like a test job at a
Yeah.
company. So like I
Yeah.
had a lot of friends who did internships at Amazon,
Yeah.
and then they started working at Amazon.
Yeah.
You know, so instead of like actually going through all these interviews and stuff, like you actually do your internship while you are in university,
Yeah.
and then you see if it works, and then that becomes your job.
Yeah.
And then that's when I realized, like when I was I took a year off my junior year, and
Yeah.
I kind of missed that. And so when I was doing my like right before I went to Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and I was thinking about after I graduate, they're like, yeah, so what kind of internships did you do? And I was like, oh, I was just struggling for survival. I wasn't doing any internships. And then
Yeah.
I realized, oh crap, I have no connections.
Yeah.
So like you can't, there are job fairs, but a lot of times people get these jobs through internships that you choose on your own at school. And another thing too is like resumes.
Yeah.
There's no set format for resumes in the States. Like it's your job to format it, make it look attractive.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. There's a lot more personality in American resumes than Japanese resumes. It's funny you mentioned that because my school's currently going through like a hiring phase for Japanese English teachers, and so I'm not in charge of that, but the guy next to me he's kind of vetting people and kind of looking over stuff, and so I kind of glance over at people's resumes from time to time, and it's really interesting because they've got a pile of Japanese English teachers and foreign English teachers, and without even reading anything, you can tell who's who. Because the Japanese English teachers they're writing their resumes in English because they have to show they're capable of speaking English, but you don't even have to read it to know if a person's a native English speaker, just because of the way that, like you said, the way they format things, kind of the length of everything. It's all very different.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I think one of the things that I feel like is more important here in Japan, especially when in college than necessarily in the US, is networking.
Yeah, right.
I think in college there in the US there's not so much of a focus on networking because I think it feels like it's I don't want to say it feels more natural, but it just feels automatic.
In the US?
In the US, like it feels like when at least in my field with English, a lot of people when they were graduating, most of the people in my classes already had jobs lined up.
Yeah.
English degrees are kind of in some ways a little bit of a joke degree compared to like actual science degrees and stuff like that, but it's like people were applying to be editors, book writers, teachers, like that kind of stuff, and they already had jobs lined up. I noticed that in my senior year that was the case for a lot of people, and it was all from doing, like you were saying earlier, is internships.
Yeah, right.
Whereas I think in Japan, there's I think once people are getting ready to graduate in college, there's this process of like getting your business card, and just handing out your business card to people, and so there's like kind of a big emphasis on networking here, and that definitely follows into your business career once you get out of college here, because like all of the opportunities that I've had, I mean, even meeting you is just with networking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I would say like, I feel like actually networking is more important in the States, but it's a different kind of networking.
Yeah.
Like the formal networking of put on my suit, go to conventions, and let's introduce myself. That's very much Japan. But, you know, one of the things that, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong because you actually went to a frat, but one of like the benefits of going to a frat is you have a network of people there, and a lot of the parents tend to be fairly well off, and so you can make, it's not like you're passing out your business cards to everyone, but you know people. Yeah. So you build connections that way.
Yeah, that's how my buddy, he's an engineer at Boeing now.
Yeah.
And up in, where is it, Everett?
Yeah.
I think he's in Everett. He's either in Kent or Everett. Anyways, it doesn't matter. He's an engineer at Boeing, and I can't tell you how difficult it is to be an engineer at Boeing, like to get in and get that job position, because it's a really competitive position. And the only way you can get that is basically knowing somebody who already works for Boeing.
Yeah, right.
And kind of getting in through that. Yeah. And he was able to get his job because exactly what you mentioned, one of the guys in his fraternity who graduated like 20 years ago was a guy who was about to retire as an engineer at Boeing at the time. And so that guy was like, hey, this guy went to my fraternity.
Yeah,
he's a good kid. I know what my fraternity's like, so I know he's capable of doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's funny how it's like you have that. So like that goes back to kind of what you have in Japanese culture, where things are a lot more formal, rigid, and structured.
Yeah.
But that also kind of like equals the playing field a little bit, because everyone kind of competes on the same terms.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the States, it's a lot more individualistic, kind of free form. But because of that, if you don't play your cards right and you don't build those connections, then
it's sink or swim.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what happened with me. I made no connections. So I was like, screw this, I'm just gonna do my own thing. And now I'm making connections now, but like for the longest time I just had no connections. So if I wanted to get a really good job at a company, there's no way.
You're not missing much, man. I love my job as a teacher, but I could never work at a company. Being stuck in a cubicle, like, I mean, you know what our office is like at school.
Yeah, dude, that was tough for me.
I can't stand being in the office. I love being in class and teaching, but even if I have like office work to do, I'll usually wait until I go home to get that work done instead of like trying to get it done in the office.
Yeah, dude, open plan offices, which are everywhere in Japan, they're just not for me. I want walls.
I feel naked.
Yeah.
You know? That's exactly how I feel. Like, I feel like it's just being watched at all times, which no one cares.
Yeah.
Like you could be watching Netflix.
Yeah.
And no one would even notice. But like it's a very insecure environment.
Yeah. So we've been doing this for a while, but we're almost done with this. So is there anything else that like we can talk about with universities in Japan versus the United States?
I think the last thing I would like to touch on is I would like to go back to getting into universities, because we talked about getting into Japanese universities, but I don't think we talked much about getting into American universities. And kind of what's more emphasized. Yeah. So, I'd like to circle back onto that topic. Yeah. So, just to kind of give like a baseline, in Japan, we talked about the entrance exams. That is 100% the requirement for universities. Of course, they'll look at your grades, which are also very important. But entrance exams are like the big thing, right? And one thing that really catches people off guard, especially because I'm dealing with helping a student right now. She's trying to apply to American universities. Oh, cool. And one thing that I've really drilled into her head is, hey, grades are important, but American universities, like, grades are not really what they're looking for. They're looking for extracurricular stuff, and the big thing for American universities is the essay. Yeah, the entrance essay.
Yeah, so just to talk about kind of like the process of applying to university in the United States. So you can take the SAT, which is like an aptitude test. Yes. You can also take the SAT, the ACT, and there's probably some other tests you can take. Sure. Too. But like you said, then you have your score, and then you have to apply to the university separately. And every time you apply, you have to write an essay. And I remember 2008. I remember my essay topic was, how would you contribute to diversity on the campus? Like that was my, and now
that white man,
I know now I see that. But I did pull my international background out, and I was accepted. But it's so like you have this essay where you have to basically write down why you want to go to this school, what will you contribute to this school, and that's totally free form. But like you said too, also like you have to give your extracurricular activities. Yes. So if you just study and you don't do anything else, you're not very attractive.
Yeah, I completely agree, because that was one of the main points that I was trying to do when I was giving advice to her, was going, hey, look, like, a person who's reading your essay and at this university is going to look at it and go, okay, it's really great that you went to school, but anybody can study and read a book. You know what I mean? Like, getting an A in your class doesn't show that you are a valuable member in your community, because that's what these colleges are looking for. They're looking at people who will contribute back to society. They're not just looking for smart kids. Right? And so there's a huge misconception with that. And so what they'll typically be looking for is they'll be looking like, okay, what volunteer services have you done? What sports have you done? What did you do on your free time during weekends? Did you just spend all day studying, or spending all day playing video games, or did you go outside and, like, you know, join in local community events and be part of your community? That's like community participation is a huge thing in universities. And it also, I mean, it makes sense knowing that, and then looking at, like, college life on campus at universities, right? It all starts to make sense. It's like, okay, well, they want people who will be part of the college, not just be attending college, right? You know?
Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that. Yeah, they want people that will be a part of the college, not just attending the college, because that goes back to, you know, like university in Japan is really much like, okay, so I have my classes. I'm going to take my classes. I'm going to put in my attendance card.
Yeah.
Who cares what my grades are? I'm just going to do job hunting and get a job.
Yeah.
And let me just do baito, and let me just, like, get drunk with my friends on the weekends, you know? But, like, in the States, there's a huge emphasis on not just studying, but actually attending classes and really applying what you learn.
Yeah.
Doing internships, being a part of extracurricular activities, like really trying to fully form you as an adult.
You know, it's kind of funny because when I look at when I compare schools with America and Japan, it feels like high school in Japan is the same as university in America.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You know?
I've used that comparison.
Have you really?
Yeah. So, like, high school in Japan is college in America, and college in America is high school in Japan.
It really feels that way, because you look at high schools here and people are just absolutely attached to their high schools in Japan. You know, I got girls at my school that are staying till like 5 or 6 o'clock every day. Just because they're attached to their clubs or they're studying or they're doing something where they're at school for basically 12 hours a day.
Right.
You would never see that in America.
Never.
Ever. I mean, I like just thinking of like senior year in college or senior year in high school, I was out by noon.
Right.
I was like, screw this. I want to go play
your
video games.
Your classes end, you're just out.
I'm just done.
Yeah.
You know? And even before that, like senior year, you're going to get out early. But even before that, it's like the end of the day happens and I'm done. I'm going home. I'm going to the movies with my friends. I'm doing something not at school.
Yeah.
You know? And so the mentality is completely different.
Yeah. Dude, I can't believe you said that too. Because like when I talked with my friends in university in Aoyama Gakuin, I said the same thing. I'm like, yeah, high school in America is kind of like college in Japan.
Dude, I'm just watching your old videos and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to steal Arthur's ideas.
Dude, it's fine. Man, but this was great. We talked a long time about this topic. Normally it's like what? It's like 53 minutes now.
Yeah.
But there was a lot to talk about. I'm glad we talked about this. And normally we finish one bottle over 2 episodes, but we did it in one. So we have to end now.
Well, I gotta do this before I head to Seattle. I'm going to Seattle.
Oh yeah. Wait, when are you going?
Next week.
Okay, dude. So we should meet at least one more time before you leave.
Yeah, for sure, man. Maybe we can talk about, you know, what I'm looking forward to next episode.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.